Welcome to the Sports Memory. I'm joined here today by the Dirty Curdy because Trevor is at the Florida State Miami tailgate. Fuck Miami. It is Miami Hate Week, so just going to put that out there. And Brandon is at the last Indiana tailgate for the season for him. So we have the fill in here with Dirty Curdy. How's it going, Kurt?
What's going on? Happy Saturday, sports fans ready for a big day of college football. What about you, Nooms?
Yep, definitely ready. Obviously, have a big game to watch. So we'll jump into what happened last week before we give you some picks for this week. So we're going to start right off at the top. Michigan State gets Purdue. Purdue has pulled off multiple upsets as an unranked team against top 5 opponents. And, Michigan State was currently number 5 or whatever, I think last week, or actually they were 3 in the college football standings. So they go lose to Purdue, and now Purdue's ranked. They get another, top 5 opponent there this week. So we'll see how that plays out. But I thought Michigan State was going to be able to cover Purdue, but apparently not.
Well, like you said, they got Purdue, and it seems like when the big teams step up to play, Purdue comes up with a whole nother level of awesomeness, I should say, when you got Aiden O'Connell throwing for 536 passing yards for 3 tutties and no interceptions. I mean, that's a pretty good recipe for a victory.
Yeah, and I've said before, but David Bell's really good for Purdue, so he's a main driver of their success.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, you see 11 receptions. I mean, that's no joke on an average of 19.7 yards per reception with 217 yards. I mean, those two dominated the game. That's impressive.
Yeah. So next up, Wake. They were undefeated, but no longer. They lose to UNC in just a wild shootout, like back and forth in that game. It was a lot of fun to watch, as I told you it would be. But Wake did wind up falling in that game. And unfortunately for Wake, it did not count as a conference game, even though they're both in the same conference, because it was a non-conference game scheduled so that they could be able to play each other. Wake still is in the driver's seat in order to win the ACC, or at least they're half of the ACC Atlantic there. So, but and then UNC goes on and earlier this week takes a massive L to Pittsburgh. So not looking great for UNC, but at least they did knock off their in-state rival Wake there.
Well, talk about luck of the draw for Wake Forest there for it to not count as a conference game. And that was a wild one, man. I remember we were out on the town and just looking up at that score and just seeing touchdown after touchdown. I mean, what a wild ride. What should have been a conference game. And I mean, you expect it between these two teams when they face off against each other too. But definitely was a fun one to watch. And it looks like Wake lucked out there with it being a non-conference game.
Yeah, so I mean that's going to probably eliminate them from any chance at the college football playoff. But if they win the conference, they're still going to get a New Year's Six bowl game. So Baylor falls to TCU. So TCU had just parted ways with Gary Patterson, and Jerry Kill, former Minnesota head coach, takes over as the interim. Baylor winds up losing this game to TCU in kind of a disappointing performance, especially from Bohannon. Your thoughts?
Well, you just took the words out of my mouth. I mean, Bohannon really has to play a lot better than what he's showing out there. I mean, they had big expectations of him before the season. And you look at these numbers here, 14 to 20 for 214 yards, 3 touchdowns. But the big one that comes out and stands out is the 2 interceptions, which you just can't turn over the ball. We all know if you lose in the turnover margin, you're not going to win the football game.
Yeah, I mean TCU was playing kind of after post coach losing their coach, so they rally, around the interim. Baylor. So Baylor's head coach Dave Aranda, in his second year there, former LSU defense coordinator and Wisconsin defense coordinator, is looking like a possible candidate to take a bigger job here. So he's either going to get a massive payday from Baylor or he's going to be coaching somewhere else next year. But what he's done at Baylor is pretty impressive this year from last year's turnaround.
No doubt. Definitely coming off too. They had those issues there with the staff prior. Baylor wasn't a program that was in good shape when they took over there after they had some of those issues in the years past.
Well, yeah. So I mean, Matt Rule had gotten them to a good point, and then leaves for Carolina, and then he takes over, and his initial staff hires offensively didn't work for sure. But they flipped that around pretty good. They did lose. We'll get to it later, actually. Illinois does topple Minnesota. So Minnesota basically they're going to try to run the ball on you, and they're going to try to run the ball on you. And Illinois almost wants to play that same style of game. I really don't get how Minnesota loses this game, but they sure enough do. And it just makes you question kind of what's going on there a little bit. But
Yeah, I mean, was the PJ Fleck, is that a flash in the pan, or I mean, is he the real deal? They had a few years there where they were showing out, and we thought the Minnesota program might be a real deal program for years to come, and it seems like it's been a disappointing here the last couple of years after losing some key pieces.
so yeah, so I mean, I think Minnesota is still good, but they've had some massive injury issues, especially to their running backs. And when you want to run the ball, that's not great.
Mhm.
But they lost, multiple NFL caliber wide receivers and Tyler Johnson, Rashad Bateman over the last couple of years. So that also is going to hinder you a little bit. But they'll need to figure it out in the recruiting aspect of things. And I don't know if their identity is going to be just run the ball, then they'll need to lean into it a little bit more, I guess,
Mhm.
to make the rest of the team, be able to play with that style. But anyway, Boise State absolutely blast Fresno State. Boise State had not looked very impressive throughout most of this year. It kind of looked like it was a little bit of a rebuild, but they go in and knock off Fresno State, who, we kind of like here a little bit because we do like their coach, Kalen DeBauer. But Boise State just handed it to them.
Which was surprising. They have struggled all year long. I mean, you got a 5-4 record, and to see them come in and knock Fresno State off, who's been looking great this year. I mean, like you said, we had a soft spot in the sports memory through all the guys here, and to see them fall to Boise State, that was a bit disappointing, but certainly an impressive victory for Boise State.
Yeah. So let's jump into some other big game results. The parlay that I played last week and was giving out, Texas A&M. They basically just. I thought Auburn was the more well-rounded team, especially Bo Nix had played at a higher level. The Texas A&M with Zach Calzada. Zach Calzada gets hurt and then actually comes in for the 2-point conversion in this game, but Bo Nix kind of just gives this game away. He fumbles in a really bad situation. Texas A&M picks the ball up and scores on that, and Bo Nix kind of just Bo Nixes.
I mean, Bo Nix gonna Bo Nix. You know how I feel about Bo Nix.
Yeah,
Trash. I don't understand how he keeps weaseling his way back into the lineup there. I don't know why Auburn hasn't tried to move on from that.
they don't have a better option at this point. They've recruited some other guys, but they've all transferred out when Bo Nix was retained as the starter, and that's kind of just where you're at now.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a wild card. You don't know what's going to happen with the guy, if he's going to fumble the football, throw an interception, but somehow, some way, Bo Nix is going to find a way to lose the game. And I know that one stings. We're in Texas A&M for you FSU guys here, seeing Jimbo at number 11, 7-2 on the year.
I mean, they're not good, regardless of what you say. But anyway, Arkansas then tops Mississippi State, so they were actually still the favorite in this game, even though Mississippi State was ranked higher. And I thought that Mississippi State had a chance to cover. It was a close game, but Arkansas does get the victory at home. So, and then I did call this one correctly. Tennessee did beat Kentucky. So Kentucky was, favorite was not favored in that game, despite being ranked the higher team.
Yeah, and that was a shame, really. I was a little bit of a soft spot for Kentucky this year in the SEC, to see a team on the lower end come out, knock off some of the big dogs, and I thought Kentucky could have made a run. But watching some of the highlights of this game, Tennessee was pushing the tempo of the game and the offense. Looked like Kentucky's defense was confused. A lot of blown coverages and big plays there as well. So just good on UT. You got to give it to them, but they've got a big test today that I think they're not going to want to face Georgia that's coming up. We've got to come back to
Yeah.
reality here.
I mean, Hendon Hooker is the real deal. The reason I have no idea why they were starting, why they weren't starting him at the beginning of the season for Tennessee, and he looks like he's a chance to potentially go in the draft if he really wanted to this year. But if he comes back another year and leads, like a better offense at Tennessee, maybe some of that recruiting will gel a little bit more for him. And, they'll be able to pull off some more upsets and kind of get them in a better position there. But this Tennessee team has some talent. A lot of that is due to Jeremy Pruitt. So we'll need to see if Heupel is going to be able to continue to recruit at that level in order to maintain what he does there. And, they're also potentially going to face a little bit of sanctions here. Tennessee kind of doing that to themselves so that they can get out from under Pruitt's contract, but whatever. Then we also had the college football rankings. Not a whole lot to see here. Michigan State obviously lost, so basically everyone kind of bumped up one. The weird one is that the committee put Michigan above Michigan State, which I don't really regret because Michigan State literally beat Michigan 2 weeks ago. So how they're a better team now, I don't get. But yeah, Oklahoma still is toiling there. They'll have an opportunity because they're going to face some good opponents to push themselves up a little bit. And I still think that there's going to be some shaking out here to do. Ohio State gets to play Michigan and Michigan State still. Bama and Georgia may get to play in the SEC championship game if both of them continue to win. So, and Oregon still has to face Utah maybe twice. So that could be, there's possibilities for some of these teams to slip up a little bit.
Well,
Waiting in
Ohio
the
State
wings.
better not sleep on their laurels, or they're going to get Purdue today.
I mean, yeah, that's true.
They've been struggling, and like we said, Purdue steps up to the plate. So there's definitely some shaking up that's going to go on in the CFP. I just don't trust these MFers for anything when I see these come out. Y'all see me in the Bearcats right here. I can already see the writing on the wall. Even if they run the table, they're going to screw these guys somehow, some way.
Well, yeah, I mean, so the best thing that could happen for Cincinnati is Notre Dame to continue to win out. So right now they're sitting in the top 10. If they continue to win out, even though their schedule is not difficult, which that's probably why they'll win out, that'll help push them up. And then by strength of that, Cincinnati will, continue to have one of the better wins in all of football at this point. So we'll see. But I mean, realistically, Alabama still doesn't have necessarily like a great win on their docket, in my opinion. They did beat Ole Miss, I guess. That's probably their best win at this point. But they also lost Texas A&M as a 20-point dog. So,
well, and then going to end up more than likely facing Georgia in the national or in the SEC championship,
right.
and finding themselves with a 2-loss resume going
Yeah.
into the end of the year. And that's why I don't trust these guys with the rankings. I mean, I could see them putting a 2-loss Alabama team in anyways,
I can.
depending
And
on how good the game is against Georgia, how well they do.
I can. And I don't think that that's warranted because your resume should count for something in this. So if you're just going to continue to put them in, then why does Alabama even have to play? But anyway, Oklahoma State still has a chance. They could beat Oklahoma maybe twice and kind of launch themselves up there. And then kind of waiting in the wings, maybe the only team with 2 losses currently is A&M that can actually get into this conversation because they do potentially get to face. They could win the SEC West, and then they could, by direct record of that, face Georgia in the SEC championship game. So if they were to win out, and that being the case, that they do actually beat Georgia, that would probably launch them up into the college football playoff. But we'll see.
How badly do you want that to happen?
We've never seen a 2-loss team like that really get into the college football playoff. So, but anyway, let's jump to the coaching carousel because there's been quite a bit of news here this last week. So Texas Tech hires Baylor assistant Joey Mcguire, who is a longtime college football or high school football coach in Texas and is kind of just a really good recruiter, but also a guy whose aspirations kind of are, that's where he's at. If he gets a head coaching job in the state of Texas, he's pretty comfortable. He's not planning on jumping around. So this is probably kind of what Texas Tech needs. The other thing is it is hard to recruit to Lubbock, Texas, and this guy may actually be able to get that done. So we'll see how it plays out, but he has been an important cog to what Baylor's done over the last two head coaching candidates there with both Matt Rule and Dave Aranda here. So Washington suspends Jimmy Lake for striking a player. Jimmy Lake got himself into some trouble just last week with those comments in regards to Oregon and Washington not being academically comparable and stuff, and say that they don't recruit against them. And then he goes and gets housed by Oregon there. Well, actually not even housed, but it was a close game. But then, strikes a player, fires his offensive coordinator after the game and stuff. And now he is suspended. That might be all she wrote. We'll see.
Just an absolute emotional mess. It's like, get it together, guy.
Washington looks like a dumpster fire. This is a team that lost to a Division II opponent or something like that at the start of the season. And it's just really not something that they should be doing because they were picked to be, a college football playoff potential caliber team. And that's not a good look. Florida fires Todd Grantham. In other news of coaches that were talking shit about recruiting and just doing bad press conferences from the week prior, Florida goes out and gets housed by South Carolina, which is very embarrassing. Then they fire Todd Grantham, the defense coordinator there for a while. That's kind of been writing on the wall. That was definitely a scapegoat kind of move. But they also fire longtime offensive line coach John Hevesy, who, I mean, that's this guy.
Dude, it's big news, man. I mean, he's been with Mullen since Bowling Green in 2001. I mean, these guys, they're not just coaches together. Their families grew up together. They've worked together for a long
20
time.
years.
It's a major surprise. It was interesting watching college football this morning, the game day. Tim Tebow was kind of making some excuses there, and Kirk Herbstreit kind of came out of left field and really smacked Tim Tebow around on the stage just to say that this is kind of a desperation move by UF. They're feeling the pressure after dropping a lot of games they shouldn't have this year, and it looks like the blame is being passed to some of these assistants here. And now the coach needs to get a spark, is what he said, to create a spark for the end of the season, and that just doesn't make sense to me for what they've been doing at UF.
So, I mean, they have not been recruiting well during Mullen's tenure. We're in year 4. They're 4-5. Yes, they went to the SEC championship game last year. They're 4-5 this year, which is that's not excusable at Florida. They expect to win national championships there. That's I mean, as delusional as that may be, that is the expectation at Florida. So they fired Todd Grantham, they fired John Hevesy, and I think this is kind of like this is your opportunity to buy some time here. You let him fire the defense coordinator, replace that guy eventually, and then that allows him to keep his job for now. But ultimately, at those spots, he's got to get guys who are good recruiters. Otherwise, this is all for naught.
Well, and you got to ask yourself though. They gave him an extension just last year, if I'm not mistaken, a huge extension for Mullen.
Yeah, but the buyout's not that bad.
Well, I didn't know anything about the buyout, but what I'm trying to compare it to is almost like when you see Jim Harbaugh too. It's like, how much time are these guys going to get? It almost seems like some of these colleges now are letting these coaches work these things out for a lot longer tenure than we're used to seeing, in my opinion, from what I've seen over the past couple of years and what I'm seeing in the college football coaching carousel, so to speak.
Well, some of it is you can fire a guy, but what are you going to do to replace them, right? So is Florida really going to be able to do a lot better than Dan Mullen? The answer to that's probably a maybe. I mean, at this point, they'd be behind the 8 ball in terms of looking for their head coach, given,
Bring back Urban. Bring back Urban.
USC's open, LSU's open. I don't know if Florida fans would want that or not.
I'm playing.
But I mean, speaking of Jim Harbaugh, so Harbaugh took actually like a decrease in pay there, reworked his contract to make it more friendly for the institution. And another guy who did that is Scott Frost just this week. So they did say that he will be retained. He's basically fired a bunch of his coaching staff to appease a lot of them there. But he did get, the vote of confidence, I guess, in terms of being able to keep his job, at least for this year, which is probably a good thing if you're Nebraska, in all honesty, because this team has improved in terms of the metrics. And also, if you're Nebraska and you fire a coach in this cycle, what pick are you going to have? You know what I mean? Like, you're picking from the bottom of the rung, basically, like 9, 10, 12 deep, maybe. Because let's say Penn State, opens because James Franklin takes the USC job or something, then Penn State's open. It's like, that's a better job than Nebraska too. So probably the correct call for Nebraska to keep Frost for now, at least.
I'm fine with Nebraska keeping Frost. If you look at their schedule this year and how they've played, they've had extremely close games. They haven't had like blowouts or getting their asses kicked or anything like that. A lot of their games this year have been super close. Maybe a couple pivotal mistakes here and there that have cost them the game. That if you flip that around, they're in big contention. They're a ranked football team for sure. And I think they can give Frost one more year. Like you said, it's not really – there's nothing out there for them. What are they going to do at this point in time? I think Frost is the answer there, and not a bad retention for them.
Well, the argument against that is that he's already been there for 4 years, and this is what the program looks like. So, how long term is the rebuild? How long is his leash? But
not long. That's why he restructured. Same thing with Harbaugh. Yeah. I mean, that's what happens when you're losing football games. When you haven't beat Ohio State at Michigan, that's your main freaking rival. They don't give a damn if you lose 5 games, 4, 5, 6 games on the year. Beat Ohio State. and the guy hasn't been able to do it freaking once, not one
Yeah,
time.
for sure.
It's embarrassing.
So, in other news, UMass fires Walt Bell. UMass is probably the worst job in all of Division 1A or the FBS football. Walt Bell was former offensive coordinator at Florida State for 1 year under Willie Taggart. He was the key recruiter for Sam Howell and left after 1 year, tried to get Sam Howell to go to UMass, and Sam Howell was like, absolutely not. So now UMass fires Walt Bell, and that's a program that probably needs to step down out of FBS football, in all honesty. Maybe out of D1 altogether. But anyway, so let's jump into this week's picks. We've got, pretty big slate of games here. Not quite as big as last week, but this should be some fun. So we're going to start it off with New Mexico is a 51.5-point dog to Alabama. The over-under in this game is 67. So Brandon and Trevor both have New Mexico State. What are your thoughts?
I mean, 51.5. I mean, that's a lot. I got to go with New Mexico State as well. I don't see Alabama putting it on to 51.5. I don't see him pouring it on like that. Give me New Mexico State.
Yeah, I'm also on New Mexico State. The key here thing for Alabama is they're going to have a massive lead in this game. When do you pull your starters? And that's probably going to happen pretty early. And that's probably why this stays within the 51.5 points, in my opinion. But yeah, give me 51.5 points because you should, anytime you're getting 50 or more, you should probably take it.
Yeah, I would say so.
Next game. Michigan at Penn State. So this opened as a pick'em. It's actually moved a little bit. Penn State is now a 1-point dog in this game, but that's still basically a pick'em. Over under 48.5. I would probably lean towards the under on that. Both Brandon and Trevor are on Michigan. Who do you got?
I'm going the latter. I'm going with Penn State at home. We just talked about Jim Harbaugh. I don't like the guy. His brother's way cooler than him. Fuck Jim Harbaugh. Penn State going into Penn. That's a big stadium there. I think it gets to be an ugly game, drag out defense, turnovers, a lot of things like that where Penn State's able to take out the win. Give me Penn State money line.
Yeah, that's probably where you take that pick or whatever, even if you are. Yeah, I wouldn't bother taking the point because it's not worth it. I think Michigan's going to win this game. I don't think that Penn State can play with them offensively. It's probably going to be a low-scoring game, I think. Both teams are pretty good defensively, but I trust Michigan's offense a little bit more. Penn State has a couple guys that can hit some explosives in Jahan Dotson, but I don't trust Clifford at all. I think Michigan will take care of the ball a little bit better, and they'll get the win here. So the next game we have is a Big 12 matchup of ranked opponents. Oklahoma is giving 5.5 points to Baylor, over under 62.5. Trevor is on Oklahoma and Brandon is on Baylor. Your thoughts?
Well, it looks like Brandon's probably playing the bounce back game here, but I'll take Oklahoma minus 5.5. Baylor, I don't like what I'm seeing out of Bohannon, and I think Oklahoma is still undefeated. They're in there in the running, and I think they're going to keep it rolling.
Yeah, so the biggest thing for me here is Oklahoma's coming off a bye. They haven't had a bye or an opportunity to really get Caleb Williams settled in there. He has been a spark plug for this offense since he's taken over at quarterback, and now with an extra week of prep, I think that this should be, setting him up to succeed down the stretch here. But it's only a touchdown game, so that one score, I expect Oklahoma to win this game anyway. So give me Oklahoma. I will give you the 5.5 points.
Excellent.
Next up, we have Mississippi State at catching 5.5 at Auburn. We just talked about Bo Nix, and we talked about Mississippi State there playing close to Arkansas. These are two pretty competent teams, close. Mississippi State's defense has been pretty good this year, but Arkansas was, able to topple them there. Do you think that Auburn will have the same success? Brandon is on Mississippi State, as he has been most of the year, and Trevor is on Auburn.
No, I like where Brandon's at with Mississippi State here. Give me 5.5 points, especially against Bo Nix. I think Arkansas's offense much more explosive than Auburn and what Bo Nix can bring. So I'll give Mississippi State a pass on that. Just be sure to see Bo Nix this thing up again today. And Mississippi, give me 5.5.
Yeah, so the game is at Auburn. That kind of gives me a little bit of it's not going to be quite as raucous an environment for Bo Nix to have to deal with, but I think that Mississippi State has a chance to win this game outright. So I will take the 5.5 points, and this might be a game that you find yourself parlaying into with a little underdog play there.
Give me the juice, baby.
Yeah. So Northwestern is getting 24.5 points to at number 18 Wisconsin. Over under of 41 here. Brandon's on Wisconsin. Trevor's on Northwestern. Who you got?
I mean, man, what does Wisconsin do? What are they known for? Pounding the rock, running down your throat. It's going to be tough to cover 24 and a half, but I'll give it to Wisconsin. Northwestern, I mean, come on, man. We're talking about academic school here. Give me the Big Ten, the big cheese, Wisconsin.
So Northwestern actually was the second team in the Big Ten last year. They did face Ohio State in the conference championship game, which I say maybe shouldn't even been in. But anyway, Northwestern is bad this year though, so I don't know if they're going to be able to score, let alone be able to keep up with Wisconsin at 24.5. Wisconsin's defense is really good. They're playing much more like the team I expect them to be coming out of the gates. Graham Mertz may not be great, but it doesn't really matter. It's tough, but I'm going to take Wisconsin, giving the 24.5 points here.
Mm-hmm.
24, number 24, Utah is giving 24 points to Arizona. Over under 54. Both Brandon and Trevor on Utah. What are your thoughts?
I mean, between the two, I just got to roll with Utah. Give me the ranked team. Minus 24. Arizona, really not much of a football program there. Their basketball program sucks too. I'll take Utah with the minus 24. The Utes.
Yeah, Arizona's bad. We're all on Utah here. Yeah. Next up, this is a big game, probably. We've alluded to it earlier. Number 1, Georgia at Tennessee. They're giving 20 points. There's an over-under of 56 points here. Both Brandon and Trevor are on Georgia. Georgia was my national championship pick before the season, and so far that's looking pretty good. What do you think?
Give me the dogs all day. I did read an article that Tennessee will be wearing their blackout uniforms today. Well, guess what, UT fans? You're going to have to be fucking blackout drunk to watch this ass whooping that the dogs are going to give you today. So give me the dogs minus 20 all day long.
Yeah, so I mean, Tennessee's offense has been explosive, but even if they hit a couple shots here, Georgia's still going to they haven't been tested this year. They've barely allowed a touchdown to any team in with their starters in the game. And if they're able to keep it close enough, that means the starters are going to continue to stay in the game. So ultimately, Georgia, they also are really good on special teams too. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them block a kick here at some point. And 20 points is not enough. Georgia's been housing teams by much more than that. So I will give you the 20 points and say go dogs as well. Next up, we have number 19, now ranked Purdue Boilermakers. They're plus 22. I think that number has slipped down to 20 and a half, 2019, somewhere around there, 21, whatever, at Ohio State. So, get the best number that you can find. Over under 62 points. Both Brandon and Trevor are on Purdue. Where are you at?
Well, I got a soft spot for Ohio, being from Cincinnati myself, but Ohio State's been struggling mightily, even though they're ranked 4. That doesn't represent the way that the season's been going in my eyes for them. And Purdue always gives them big trouble. If you're giving me 22 points, I'll take Purdue all day with that. And then just for the juice, I'll also take Purdue money line if the bet is there as far as the juice to take down Ohio State. Ohio State struggles against them, and I think it's a good bet to place for the day.
Yeah, I think you're getting a lot of odds on that. That is an upset special that could happen. You would be handsomely paid out if you are able to take Purdue money line on that, and they do pull it off. But I'm with you. I'm with Purdue. I think that Ohio State's maybe their biggest weakness is in their secondary. So Purdue, with the wide receivers that they have and David Bell and stuff that we already talked about, being able to cover 22.5 points, I will take that action.
I mean, may see a repeat performance, but double-digit receptions, over 150 yards. I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. So Minnesota at Iowa. Iowa's ranked 20. Minnesota has fallen out. Minnesota's getting 5.5 points, over under of 37. So they expect this to be a fairly low-scoring game. Brandon is on Minnesota and Trevor is on Iowa.
Well, give me the Hawkeyes. Like I said, I don't know what's going on with PJ Fleck or that Minnesota team. Again, if it was just a matter of losing a lot of those guys to the NFL and they haven't got that recruiting carousel to come back around. But in Iowa, one of my favorite stadiums to watch a game, especially when they do the wave to the kids in the is it Shriners Hospital, I think. That's right there that overlooks the stadium. It's a super cool thing. And 5.5 minus 5.5. I'll take Iowa all day.
Yeah, so I'm also on Iowa here because Minnesota wants to run the ball, and that is easy enough for Iowa to stop. There's a good chance that this game finishes under below that low over under of 37. So I will take Iowa on that one. Southern Miss at UTSA. UTSA is giving them 33 and a half points. They are 23 in the country and undefeated at this point. There's an over under of 54 and a half. Both Brandon and Trevor are on Southern Miss. Kurt.
Hey, let me just be blunt and honest. I don't know jack shit about Southern Miss or, or what we're going here, but you give me a ranked team going up against them. I'll take UTSA minus 33 just for the shits and giggles.
Yeah, I'm also on UTSA. They're a much better team. They are trying to win with style points, and they have been succeeding at that so far. So I expect them to win. Maryland at number 7, Michigan State. Maryland's catching 13 points, over under 62. Brandon is on Maryland. Trevor is on Michigan State.
Well, I expect nothing less from Brandon. I'm sure he's a Tua Tagovailoa fan as well in the NFL. Well, no, thank you. I'm good on that, and I'll take Michigan State. I just see them dominating the game. I'll take the 13 and a half points to the minus 13 points, pardon me, with Michigan State against Maryland. I just don't think they'll be able to hang with a Big Ten team like that. I think they control the clock and run it down their throats.
Yeah, Maryland's been getting beat up by some teams, and I expect Michigan State to be able to do that. So I'm also on Michigan State here. Texas A&M, number 11 at 15, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a 2.5 point home dog, over under of 55.5. Both Brandon and Trevor are on Ole Miss.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting game for sure. One thing that makes me lean a little bit towards Texas A&M is Jimbo Fisher, and I know you guys hate to hear that, but I think he's a great coach. FSU, one of the biggest mistakes they ever made there, not giving that guy what he wanted. But Ole Miss as well.
I mean, that is such a bullshit thing to say.
Hey, don't get down the rabbit hole. We're talking about Ole Miss, Texas A&M.
You brought it up, so I'm going to address it here. There's no amount of money that was going to keep Jimbo Fisher in Tallahassee after his wife cheated on him and he got divorced. His kid has a rare disease that is much better treated in a hospital near Texas A&M, and then they offered him $100 million. Also, Jimbo Fisher had already parlayed multiple extensions out of pretending to go to LSU, pretending to go to Alabama, Auburn, whatever. He just tries to, and he's literally doing the same thing again now. He's saying, oh yeah, no, I'm going to stay at Texas A&M, even though LSU's coming. Watch, he's going to parlay that into another contract extension, even though he already got one this year. So
I know I shouldn't have pushed your buttons this morning. I know I shouldn't have done it.
Jimbo Fisher had stopped recruiting. The program had taken a turn. He's a much better, he's much better at flipping a program than he is at building a program up and continuing to maintain it. So lots of coaches can turn a program around. Not many can maintain it. That's why Nick Saban's one of the GOATs, because he's continued to win national championship after national championship at Alabama, and nobody else seems to be able to do something like that. Even your boy Urban Meyer, or Urban Cryer, as we like to call him, that's all he did. He didn't maintain. He left Florida after 5 years or something. As soon as it started to go down the well, he's out. Ohio State, he wins national championship, loses a couple of coordinators, and then he's out. That's what he does. Nobody's able to really maintain a program like Nick Saban. That's why he's the GOAT. And Jimbo Fisher, although he's having some success on the recruiting trail here, I don't think he ever wins a national championship at Texas A&M. So he can have all that money he wants.
Not saying national championship, but guy's a good coach. But honestly, like I said, I might have been leaning towards Texas A&M. But when you have Corral and that high-powered offense with Ole Miss, I'll take a money line for the juice. At being 2-point dogs, you might as well go ahead with the money line bet. And I'll take Ole Miss at home.
So you're not going to take Texas A&M after all that?
Yeah. Told you, but pushing your buttons.
All right. So next up, I'm also going to take Ole Miss here with the 2.5 points. I think that the reason for that is Ole Miss's quarterback is significantly better than Auburn's quarterback in Bo Nix. Matt Corral is potential first-round draft pick. They have talented wide receivers. They're going to be able to score offensively. And Texas A&M, there's a chance that they're not going to be able to keep up.
Mhm.
I don't trust the way that Chimbo wants to play the game, or the way that they're built in terms of their offensive coordinator and their quarterback Zach Calzada being able to keep up with Ole Miss if they do manage to score some points there. Plus, I'm getting 2.5 points, so give me that. And this could finally be the week that Texas A&M loses, even though I continue to pick against them every week.
I wonder why.
Next, we have Notre Dame giving 5.5 points to Virginia. There is some debate whether or not Virginia's quarterback is going to play in this game. He is a key element for them. Both Brandon and Trevor are on Notre Dame.
Well, first things first, fuck Brian Kelly again. Go Cincinnati. But UC, you're keep your friends close with your enemies closer. We need Notre Dame to win out and keep that resume built up for UC. Plus, Virginia is not a very good football team. I'll take Notre Dame minus 5.5.
So I'm also on Notre Dame at this. I think that if the Virginia's quarterback plays, that makes this game, has a better chance of actually getting to that 5.5 number and Virginia covering. But without him, this game is going to turn wildly in Notre Dame's favor. Notre Dame has started to lean on their running game, which they should have been doing all year. And I think that they'll be able to, hold Virginia off here. I expect Notre Dame to win this game by more than the 5.5. Next up, this is a pretty big game here. Number 16, NC State is getting 2 points at number 12, Wake Forest. This is a conference game for Wake, so they can't use that excuse anymore. The over-under is 66.5, which is low, in my opinion, given what Wake Forest has done. They've scored like 35-plus points in every single game this year, so that doesn't leave NC State needing to score a whole lot in order to get to that point. Brandon is on Wake Forest, as is Trevor.
Well, I know Wake's got the high-powered offense, but I'm riding with a lot of dogs today, especially in these close games when we're only getting a couple points here and there. We're talking gambling in an in-conference game with the ACC. I like NC State and the Wolfpack. Again, I won't even take the 2 points. I'll take a money line here at Wake Forest. Just looks like that offense, even though they'll still put up some points, I like NC State to come through with the dub.
Yeah, so I just think Wake has like a schematic advantage against NC State because NC State always seems to have trouble with them. So I will give you the 2 points. I expect the over to hit in this game, so that is a smart play if you're looking for that. So I'm on Wake in this one. Next up, we have number 25 Arkansas coming back after their victory over Mississippi State, giving 2.5 points to LSU at LSU. The over/under in this game is 59.5. Both Brandon and Trevor are on Arkansas.
Yeah, give me the Razorbacks. Give me them Hogs, baby. I'll be like, what is it? What's his name? Jerry Jones. My hand don't cramp when I sign checks. Arkansas alumni. So give me the Razorbacks here against LSU. LSU's been struggling. Coach O out. Get him out of here. Arkansas minus 2.5. I'll take it.
So LSU's actually been pretty feisty since Coach O has been, basically pushed out, including, they beat Florida and then he got, they announced that he was not going to be retained. But Arkansas, I just think that they're too much offensively. They have a better defense, more bought-in team. I understand that this game is being played later in the day, and it is at LSU, which is a tough place to play. But I'm on Arkansas, although the more I think about it, I'm kind of talking myself out of it.
Well, I mean, it could go the other way. LSU is a major program. They have talent down there. They're recruiting in the state of Louisiana. Anywhere down towards that southeastern part of the United States is going to be a powerhouse. And a team who usually galvanizes after something big happens in the coaching scheme. We're seeing it in the NFL with the Raiders. We're seeing it with LSU. So I understand why you might be getting talked out of it a little bit. But I do like those Razorbacks to come through.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's just too much of a talent drain for me. For LSU, over the course of this season, they've lost a lot of key players throughout, transferred out and injury and all this other stuff. So I'm still going to take Arkansas, even though this game might be pretty close. But 2.5 points is not enough to swing me here.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we have TCU at Oklahoma State. TCU coming off the upset victory over Baylor. Oklahoma State is, only got that one loss, and their defense has continued to play pretty well here. So Oklahoma State's giving 13 points to TCU. Both Brandon and Trevor are on Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I mean, how can you pick against the greatest hair in college football right now with Oklahoma State and their coach, the flowing mullet coming through? They only got one loss. I think teams look great. Oklahoma State, TCU got an emotional victory here that they just had in state rivalry against Baylor, and see Oklahoma State to come through and romp them, I believe, by more than 13 points.
Yeah, I'm on the Frogs, man. I think that 13 is a little bit too much. Oklahoma State has a good defense, but they have struggled to score at times. Their quarterback is not a sure thing. And TCU with Jerry Kill at the helm, they played a little bit better with their quarterback last week. So, I mean, they may lose this game, but I think they can cover 13.
We shall see.
Next up, we have Washington State getting 14 points at number 3, Oregon. Both Brandon and Trevor are on Oregon here. Who you got?
I hate to say, agreeing with everybody, but you got to take Oregon here at home, number 3, too much on the line. Even with the 14 points, I don't like Washington State. I'll take Oregon all day.
Yeah, so I'm actually on Washington State, even though they've fired their head coach, Nick Rolovich. 14 points is too many here. Oregon does not tend to play well at home. Washington State has been keeping games close, so I think they can keep this one close enough to come within that 14 points, and I am on the Wazoo here.
All right.
And then I think this is the last game that we have for you. Yeah. So Nevada is plus 2.5 at number 22, San Diego State, over under of 46. Brandon is on Nevada. Trevor is on San Diego State. Trevor is a San Diego native, so that doesn't surprise me. What do you got, Kurt?
Give me the Aztecs, baby. Probably one of the coolest colleges you could ever go to. Most beautiful sitting out there in San Diego. I like the Aztecs to take down Nevada today. Even with the 2.5 points, like it's going to be a close game. They're predicting, but I like San Diego State to take them down.
Yeah, so Nevada actually has Carson Strong, who's potential first-round draft pick at quarterback. Also a guy that, if not a first-rounder, he's got a good chance to be an NFL caliber quarterback there, or he is an NFL caliber quarterback. They also have Norvell there as their head coach. This is probably their last opportunity to really kind of show out on what is somewhat of a national stage. San Diego State has trouble scoring the ball. They're really good defensively, so you've got good defense going up against good offense, but I think Nevada just has more riding on this game. So I like Nevada to cover that 2.5 points in this one.
The Wolf.
Yeah, so I mean that's going to take care of all the games for you today on our slate. We've pretty much we've given you for the most part we've all been on a lot of the same ones, but there's probably going to be some upsets in here. So anyway, go out there, enjoy it. It's going to be a good day of college football. Also, Florida State, Miami. So fuck Miami once again. Go Noles, and it's going to be a big old recruiting weekend up there, and I'm sure Trevor's having a bunch of fun. He told me that he's got a bunch of sorority girls were supposed to come on the pod today, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. So,
well, like Newman said, I'm just going to echo that. Grab your favorite beverage, get down on the couch, your favorite snack, get ready for a whole lot of college football today and some great games. And again, go UC, baby. Let's go.
And if you like what we're doing here, you can check out tomorrow. They're going to have a NFL podcast for you, giving out some winners. So,
yeah, check us out, the Sports Memory podcast at the Sports Memory. We'll be here. Thank you all very much. Have a great day.
Like and follow us everywhere. Have a good one.